Here they come, the biggest games of the year. Or was that last week or the week before? Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates that I hope you'll check out. If I sound a little gassed, it took a little longer than I'd expected to get back from covering the game up in Winnipeg. And beyond that, kind of running out of material, you know? This is tough. These games all look the same. The players all look the same. Everything's a flat line. You want to talk about a team that's just skating on a treadmill, if you will. The Penguins are 3-4-3 in their last 10 games. They haven't scored more than 3 goals in any of those games. 10 games in a row. Look at the names on this roster. Look at how hard they're trying within what it is that they do, meaning as individuals. The efforts almost entirely been there. The first 10 minutes against the Jets, they didn't defend hard enough, but it's funny, they still skated hard. They just tried to go pond hockey with a team that they can't go pond hockey with. They hate that. It drives them nuts, embarrasses them. So now, here they are again. Tomorrow night, the Panthers will be in. I happen to believe that the Panthers are the class of the Eastern Conference. I don't care what the standings show on a given day. I believe they've got it all, and I believe that their ascent into the Eastern Conference final last season was anything but a fluke, even though they sneaked in, well, really, thanks to the Penguins, as the 8th seed. There's so much there. The skill, the speed, the size, the toughness, the goaltending, the defending. They've got everything. So you know what's going to happen? Ready? You can write it down with me here? Because we can just co-byline this column and get it done and filed even before the puck is dropped. Penguins will come out fired up and they'll defend. They'll make sure that Sam Reinhart doesn't continue outscoring their entire power play. They'll at least try to body up on Matthew Tkachuk. They'll keep a close eye on Alexander Barkov and they'll compete. I don't know that they're going to win, but they'll compete. They'll look like they belong on the same ice surface as Florida. They just will. They just will. That's how they roll. Look over the entire schedule. And let's say that in the face of this desperation, which it would have to be, one would hope, that they pull out 2 pretty nice points. Okay, next night, on to Chicago. Blackhawks stink, except when they have Connor Bedard, but they don't have Bedard. Bedard's not supposed to be back from his busted jaw until next week. So, you go out there, you take care of business, you defend those Blackhawks, you might even have it in the back of your mind that they're the team that ended your playoff run, Rockford Ice Hogs and all. No, that's the one they lose. That's the one where they try to outskate guys for no reason other than that they can just kind of casually take the night off from defending. And after that, because they took the first 2 points, and maybe they'll even sneak out a point in Chicago, they'll all say afterward in the locker room, and I'm going to be out there covering that one, so I'll report all of that, how there were some lessons that they learned, and then they just need to kind of bounce back and treat that next game or games that they play as just the games we absolutely had to have. There isn't an individual in this to blame. I know, I'm not numb to this, that people want one. Mike Sullivan is to blame to a degree. Kyle Dubas is to blame to a degree. Todd Reardon. I'm sure we could find something to pin on Mike Vellucci, too, and Andy Chiodo, but this is principally, not entirely, on the players. This is on about 3/4 of these players. because on those occasions when they've listened to the coaches, they've done well. Tells me the coaches have a pretty decent plan, at least at 5-on-5. When they've lined up against an opponent that interests them, that, piques their curiosity, then they do okay. Sometimes they win. When they commit to defending, and I mean really, really commit, meaning in their heads, they still sometimes can't avoid the muscle memory of, ooh, hey, look at the jets flying around. Let's try that, fellas. It might only be subconscious. Everyone keeps looking for one place to point the finger. One guy. Coach is easy. Everybody does that in hockey. That's why every coach everywhere around the league gets fired like every 4 months. It's not only easy, but it's lazy. There's real work that has to be done in trying to figure out who's exactly messing up more than somebody else. But the one thing that's certain is it isn't one individual. This isn't a case where you change the head coach and then Geno's actually going to try to pass that puck off the right point in the final seconds in Winnipeg. You know what I'm talking about. You know. Who does somebody think is out there who's going to be able to communicate something that would make it through to Geno in that specific setting? Hey, Geno, next time, just move the puck or something. Oh, sure, coach. That's, when we come back, J1Q. I'm slumping too. That was the worst Geno impression I think I've ever done. Oh, sure, coach. First of all, he'd never say sure. He'd say, okay. Okay, coach. Evan has today's J1Q, and it's also about number 71. Evan says, Geno is a legendary player and a lovable guy. Does he have it in him to retool his game into a more two-way role with defensive upside? He breaks up plays and works both sides of the puck when he wants, but I doubt he'll embrace this kind of role permanently. I hope I'm wrong. Embrace was the best word in this question, Evan. That's really the one that's got to be asked, but also answered honestly. I've had this very conversation with Geno. I've brought up the names of Sergei Fedorov, of Pavel Datsyuk, both of whom they didn't abandon their offense as they got older, but they built it around their defending. They knew that they could both defend at an elite, not good, not very good, not great, elite level. And they did. But they also were able to get their share of goals in large part because they were consistently good at turning the puck over, forcing the attack the other way. Yeah, I brought it up with him. And what I get back is something along the lines of Sergei and Pavel were great players. I respect them very much. And then he'll start talking about his skating. Geno's answer, and this goes back to teenage Geno, for every time he starts to struggle, but especially when he gets into a deeper funk. And we're now 2 goals in the past 15 games deep into this one. He'll just do that thing where he revs it up. Thing that Brooks Orpik used to call beast mode. Where Geno will just get the puck, and you can picture it in your head. Back in the Pittsburgh zone, wheel around a little bit to build up some extra momentum. He tried it the other night in Winnipeg. He tried it in the third period. There wasn't one jet waiting for him. There were 2. He had nowhere to go. Tried it anyway. If he had somehow split these 2 guys, there was a third one waiting. You know why? Because they had a pretty good idea he wasn't about to dish. Because that version of Geno is something all of those guys have seen back to their own teenage years. Everyone knows what that looks like. Yeah, Geno's still got wheels. He can still turn it on. And he might have turned it on right there if those 2 guys hadn't been waiting for him. But they were. And he wasn't able to just will his way out of the situation the way he's been able to in the past. A little thing, but it really, really, really leaped out at me. And no, Evan, that's not a player who's thinking about his next phase. That's not a player who's thinking about how he'll reinvent his game the way, for example, Mario Lemieux did when he came back from his 3-year retirement. He said, you know what, I'm going to be a gunner. I can do all the other stuff. I know that. I can pass better than anybody who's ever passed. I can do all this other creative stuff, but I'm not going to be flying up the ice and beating guys one-on-one the way I did when I was a kid. So I'm going to let somebody else do that. I'm going to gain the zone. I'm going to set myself up on the left side and release one of the great shots in hockey history from any angle which I choose. Very, very different looking 66 when he came back, yet somehow still pretty much at the same productive pace. No one had to tell him to do that either. He just kind of figured it out. He read himself. And maybe Geno can get around to trying that, meaning reading himself. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we're going to do one more of these tomorrow.